Hello comrades! It will be answer for the comrade Vegito Blue. Nice video. I don't know whether you answer question, but I would like to know a few things. My channel, English speaking channel, is not very popular. There are not many comments here, and also when I started this channel my level of English was very weak. Now also is weak, but not very weak, so I progress. And in the past I didn't answer many questions in the comments. I want to change it. So yes, if you and other comrades have questions about my activity, about the activity of the communism of Poland, because it is important, not my activity personally, but the Marxism in Poland. If you have questions, try to make this question here, and me or other comrades we will answer. Okay, so I will read first thing. As a communist yourself, did you grow up with very religious anti-communist parents, and what made you turn into a communist? Did you have to unlearn all the lies they fought? I also heard that Russia is a big problem in your country, and that they believe that Russia is the biggest threat to them, which is why they move closer to the West, which they should learn from history. He has always betrayed them. So first part, I want to say that no, my parents was not religious. My parents was atheist. Firstly, maybe I will present my grandparent. My grandpa, his name is Andrzej Nowicki. He was a professor of philosophy. In the time of socialist Poland, he was very famous. Especially in 1950s and 1960s, he was very famous because of his books, anti-clerical books. So he was one of the most important person in socialist Poland, fighting with Catholic religion and all the religions. So my background is not Catholic, I can also say, because it is easy to find that my mother is feminist, bourgeois feminist, or is typical liberal bourgeois feminist, which were very famous in 1990s, in the time when the abortion in Poland was forbidden. She fought for the free abortion. Now there are other feminists in Poland, more active than my mother, because my mother is already 65 years old, but now she is in the Polish parliament, and she continues her I don't want to say fight, because it is not a fight, but she continued to this discourse for the women rights. So my background always was a background of the in atheist family, but it is an exception. I can say that most of my comrades have background from the Catholic families. Also my wife is from Catholic family, and this is a big problem, this religious background in some level, because if you want to have a normal life in Poland, all the time you have pressure of the neighbors, pressure of the family, that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you should have this. with us, with me now, it is something different. And it is also different for my wife, that we are not living in Poland. I am in France. And my wife, which is with me, she is different person now. She is different when she be with me, and now after we are together more than 7 years. So now she is different. She has more courage to speak or not speaks with her families about the question, which she became anti-clerical also, because in the time when we meet first time, she in her mind he hate Catholic Church, but she didn't wanted to speak about it openly with her family. Now it's changed. Maybe it is because of me. I know that it is because of me, but also because of emigration. That easier when you are in Poland only to vacation and holidays. But also the Poland is changed. The example of this change in Poland, it was this movement which existed in Poland in October and November 2020, when many young Poles go out from the streets and very loud they shout, "Shut the fuck up!" to the clergy, to the Catholic Church. They stop the masses. It is first time in Polish history when the society was organized the movement, anti-clerical radical movement, mass movement, because it was mass movement. In my time when I was in Poland, we made action against Catholic Church, but it was very, very little. Now it was very, very huge. So now it is the question of Russia. So the question of Russia is complicated because of history, also history of the Polish revolutionary movement. That, as you maybe know, Poland was occupied by Russia in 19th century, but this occupation started in 18th century. Now I don't want to present all history of the Kingdom of Poland in 18th century, but in the beginning of the 18th century, in the time of the Tsar Peter the Great, Poland became a protectorate of Russia. Not officially. Officially, Poland was an independent state, and also very powerful independent state in 18th century. When you find a map of the Europe in 18th century, you will find that Poland was very big country, but it was a big country without and the Polish elites was corrupted by the Russian. We have the parliament system, which was very, very easy to corrupt that, and Russians started to corrupt Polish parliamentaries, and many decisions like that the Russian army already occupied Poland in 18th century was a fact. That there is very famous war. Its name is 7 Years War. that it was war when officially Poland don't take in a part, but this war was in Poland, in territory of Poland. It was war between all the big powers. In one side Prussia against Russia, against other it was Autriche, French, England. So this partition of Poland in the finish of the 18th century, it was because Russia starting to lose power in Poland, because firstly all Poland was protectorate of Russia in 18th century, and after Russia had to share Poland with Autriche and with Prussia, and it is why they make partitions and divided Poland in 3 parts. But of course the biggest part was part of Russia. So the history of relations Poland with Russia, where Poles organized many insurrections. There we have insurrection Barska. It was in 18th century, after insurrection Kościuszko. So insurrection Konfederacja Barska, insurrection Kościuszko. After we have the time of Napoleon and the war, where the Poles and the French army make war against Russia. They occupied Moscow. We have in 1930 we have the November uprising. After we have January uprising and many other things that after Russia state starting to make Russification of Polish young or Poles, young Poles in schools. So when the Polish revolutionary movement starting exist, it was in the time that Poland was occupied by Russia, and the question what we are thinking about Russia was the most important for not only for Polish society but also for Polish revolutionaries. And the Polish revolutionaries were divided in this question for beginning of existence of Polish socialist movement. We have 2 kinds of movements. One movement is towards to collaboration, towards to solidarity with the Russian revolutionaries, Russian workers' class. So it is the tradition of the party proletariat, which existed in 1880s. Ludwik Waryński, Stanisław Kunicki, for example. There were 4 people which are killed by the Russian in the Warsaw Citadel, and in these 4 people were also Russian Piotr Bardowski. So this party collaborated with the revolutionaries from Russia, but it is only half of the Polish socialist movement. There are also other socialist movements which say that Polish socialists, Polish workers have to fight for the independence, and this is the tradition of the Bolesław Limanowski, and after Józef Piłsudski and all Polish Socialist Party. And you have to understand that in this division in the time of the revolution 1905, Polish Socialist Party was stronger than the internationalists who wanted to collaborate with the Russian revolutionaries. So, for example, the Social Democracy of Poland and Lithuania, the party of Rosa Luxemburg and Felix Dzierżyński. So this question, what we think about the future of Poland, what we think about the revolutionary from Russia. It was a question which existed in 19th century and also which existed today. So we have similar discussion today about the European Union. What is our goal? What we want to do, like a Polish socialist or like a member of the Polish Workers' Party? Do we want to build independent socialist state in Poland? It is possible, or do we want to be a part of the something bigger, like a European Union movement for socialism? It is possible to make all the European Union socialist or not? Today, do we have to use the word Polexit, that Poland have to go out from the European Union or not? And what is our position towards the Belarus, towards the Russia, and stuff like this? So it's and of course I only summarize you the discussion, but I will not present what I am thinking about, because it is complicated question to answer. In one side, it is easier for us technically. It is easier to take power in Poland, only in Poland, because we know Polish language, Polish culture, we know what was the problem here, and in my opinion, the situation, the Polish elites, the parties which exist in Poland are very, very weak. They are weak in the question of popularity. They are weak. There are not many people who are member of this party. We have the elites which are active in the political life from 30 years. They are already old, and for me, somebody who are totally different. I am a worker, I am young, I am radical, I want to, my dream is to make debate with some of these older politicians, because I know that if worker will listen this debate, he will say that I have right. It is possible, I think, to make a political. Now we are very, very weak, but our enemies also are weak, and I think that it make me hope that it is possible change in Poland. Now it is question if is possible the big revolution in the European Union. I don't think so. I hope that, but it will be more complicated. And these countries like Germany, for example, or France, there are big tradition of corruption of the workers' movement and lefts, and I don't think that the left from these countries will be interesting to build a socialist federation. But in the other way, what will be the future of the socialist Poland in Europe if Europe still be a imperialist capitalist state? Of course, there will be sanctions, there will be starvage, there will be like a situation of sanction like in Cuba, and the Polish economy will fall about this. So maybe I will finish here because there are other questions. But I wanted to say that question of Russia and question of the future in Poland now in European Union is always existing. And also we have this Russia phobia, the hates of Russia now. But I think that it is something not very. It is strong. It is maybe strong in the media and the elites, but not in the population. The population don't care about this. The population don't think that Russians are our enemy. Okay. If you grew up in Poland, how did they teach the history there? Did they teach it like the Soviets were always on the side of the Nazis because they invited Poland together and somehow the Polish managed to free themselves of Nazism without any Soviet help, but soon got invaded and occupied by Soviets for almost 50 years. So my history, my personal history, is the history of guy who was in the school in 1990s. And in 1990s, the program of history was changing every time. It was not like this that one day after Counter-Revolution they change all the programs for learning history, all the books, and it was not possible. It was big operation, and this change, radical change of history, it was a process which was starting in the time when I was in the school, but it was finished after. I can give you one example, that in time when I was in school, they teach us about the Armia Krajowa. I talk about the history of the Second World War. So they teach about Armia Krajowa, that there existed a force which was not communist, that through our government was government in exile in London, and the true force of the Polish state was Armia Krajowa, which organized, for example, the Warsaw Insurrection in 1944. But they didn't teach us about the cursed soldiers. In 1990s, there was not in the schools any words about cursed soldiers. Cursed soldiers, it is the people who, we have two kinds of cursed soldiers. So cursed soldiers, this is the name for the Polish people who after Second World War, not after Second World War, not after May, but after January 45, they continue fight against Polish socialist state and Red Army, which are in Poland in this time. And they continue this fight in 1945, 46, 47, and there are also a little movement after, but the most important fight was in 46 and 47. So we have two kinds of discouraged soldiers. One kind, it was members of Armia Krajowa, which wanted to continue the fight, because Armia Krajowa was finished in January 1945. The direction of Armia Krajowa said that now Poland is liberated, so we how to say, deactivate this organization. And so there are most of the soldiers of Armia Krajowa joined to the Polish army, Polish Popular Army, and continued the fight against German, and many of them are participating in the fight in the Berlin, for example. It is important that this member of the Armia Krajowa was they participated in the fight in the cities in Warsaw, and when they participated in the guerrilla city in Berlin, they have experience from Warsaw. The second Mary. My grandmother was divorced, and her second husband of my grandmother was named Kazimierz Albin. He was a prisoner of the Auschwitz, and after he was a member of Armia Krajowa. He was a hero of Armia Krajowa. He is in the cemetery with the most important leaders of this Armia Krajowa, but he joined the Polish Workers' Party, and he joined. He was one of these person when the Armia Krajowa was dissolved. He said that now I will be collaborated with Socialist Poland. He was not socialist, but he was patriot, and because now Poland was socialist, he wanted to collaborate with New Poland. And people like him were many. In this time he was young. He was 23 years old. In time of 23 years old, he already was a prisoner of Auschwitz, and already was a fighter for Armia Krajowa, and after he joined the Polish Workers' Party. So it was in the 1990s, but after, when I already finished my education, they changed the program of the learning in schools, teaching in the schools, and they started to make they starting to teach about the cursed soldiers. They starting to present cursed soldiers like true heroes, because they not only make a war against in the time of Second World War, but also against communists, and the communists is the biggest threat to Poland. Now, so we have two kinds of these cursed soldiers: ex-members of Armia Krajowa, and we have also Polish fascists, which in the time of the Second World War, they collaborated with Gestapo. They killed Polish Jews. They killed the Polish communists. When the Jews they succeeded and they have. They survived ghetto, they survived concentration camp. The Polish fascists from the cursed soldiers, they killed them. They collaborated with Nazis. And people like this also continue to fight against the Soviet Union, against socialist Poland, because they were criminals, and they knew that for their activity, for collaboration with Gestapo, they will be killed. And so they continued the struggle. So the band of the criminals, unfortunately, they organized a lot of young Poles. Young Poles, because this movement of course soldiers, it was massive. It was not one unified organization, but we have all from 70,000 to 100,000 people who are active in this movement. Okay. Oh, I am responding very, very slow. Poland is an ethnically homogeneous country with 98 ethnic groups. Of the country is Polish and 19% Christianity with 86% Catholicism, also with their mistrust of Russia and fully allying themselves with the West, while simultaneously having a nationalistic government that persecute communists, while also allowing the rise of Nazism. It is not the question, but I want to say that these numbers are not true. This was true in 1990s, but now it is not true. Now we have many Poles emigrated from Poland. We don't have exact numbers, but it is minimum 3 million who emigrated from Poland. They emigrated from Poland that all the time we are located in Poland. My papers, my card identity, my ID is from Poland, and when my son was born in France, but because of these relations in European Union, he is not a French, he is Pole, and so I need to go to Polish embassy and inscript him to the Polish nation. I don't know if he will live in Poland, but he is Pole. But Poland now is not ethnically homogeneous country. It's finished. It was not already true in 1990s when Poland starting to be a center of the emigration for the Vietnamese and the people from the third world countries. But after 2004 and 2014 to regime change in Ukraine, especially after 2014, many Ukrainians came to Poland. We don't have exact numbers, but 1 million Ukrainians, it's very probably that when you are in all big Polish cities like Warsaw, like Wrocław, you can find very easily the Ukrainian population. You can go to restaurant, you can go to the watch people, the builders, workers who build, construction workers. You will find that they are not Poles. So, but they don't want to publish new statistics, demographic statistic, because it is catastrophe. It is catastrophe. It is not something. It is not something typical from Poland. It is typical for all these European countries that in this neoliberal mode of system of living, in this neoliberal politic of austerity, that when you have child, you have to pay for the crash, you have to pay for the babies, you have problem with your work, the demographic situation, reproduction of is very, very weak. So this question of the demographic is one of the most important question, political, especially for the extreme right. They use this argument that they are not the nations from the European Union don't make babies, but so we have weak situation in all European Union, but in Poland we have one of the weakest situation. And for example, for the women who came from Poland, when these women go to Germany or England, they show that they are capable to make a children. So in England we can find Polish families with 3 children, 4 children, but in Poland 1, maybe sometimes 2, and that's all. And in the same time we have a very big immigration movement, especially from Ukraine, but other ex-Soviet countries, Belarus also. This is with Ukraine, and we have this. You have to remember that we have that Polish migration is the migration to Poland is organized by 2 forces. One force, of course, it is Polish bourgeoisie, who wants to make a cheap labor force. You can find in Polish press, in Polish media, articles and the expert for the bourgeoisie who speak. We need to make something that have new workers, because many Poles are emigrating and we don't have people to work. We have a lot of factories now because they delocate the industry to Poland, because Poland have the cheapest labor force in Europe. So they build factories in Poland, but they are not workers. And they speak openly. We need Ukrainians. We need the Filipinos, because they are Catholic. This is third world country, but with Catholic background. So it is one side of this emigration. Second side, it is Polish nationalist conservatives who are speaking about Poles who lived in the east because of the history. Because in the time on the 17th, 18th century, the Kingdom of Poland was very, very big, and there were colonization of these areas by Poles, and also there was a Polonization of the people who lived there. Now we can find Poles in Ukraine, Belarus, in Lithuania, and Russia, Kazakhstan. Russia, Kazakhstan, it is other history. It is history of the that in the time of the Tsar, the guerrilla movement was expelled them, sent them by the Tsar. Okay, so they said we have very weak situation in the demographic, so maybe we will try to invite Poles from Ukraine, Poles from Belarus, Poles from the Lithuania to Poland. So the procedure for migration from Ukrainians are easier than the other nations, and every Ukrainian citizen can say that his grandmother was Pole, and when they ask, okay, show us the paper, I can show you the paper because in the time of the Bandera or in the time of Soviet Union, our family have to destroy this paper. Okay, we believed you. So now every citizens of Ukraine can say that he is the have ancestor of Poles, and easy he will have Polish papers. Of course, they don't know. Many of them don't speak Polish, and today it is not a problem. But because this movement of population is very, very fast. I am speaking about minimum 1 million people who came to Poland in 5 years. You can imagine the history, all this history in the right-wing politician parties, but it was something which was stopped, because most of these Ukrainians, they came to Poland, but after they go to other countries, they go to Germany, and so they use these papers that my grandmother was Pole, but now I go to Germany. And of course, for the question of the salaries, it is good reason. I want to say that we, Polish Workers' Party, we are a party interesting to make political work with these migrant workers. We are the only political force who speak about this openly, that we are the party of the workers who lived in Poland. We are not. We are open for the Ukrainian workers, Belarusian workers, Vietnamese workers, all the workers who lived in Poland, who want to fight for their rights, for their salaries, for socialism. You are invited to Polish Workers' Party. Okay. Oh, it's very, very long. Answer this question. The Polish left has never been in such a low position, which is not surprising given the fact that Poland has never had a successful socialist revolution, as they lost the Soviet-Polish War and had an authoritarian government that was on the Nazi side until they were invaded themselves. They only had a socialist government because there were Soviet soldiers there. In my opinion, socialists would most likely be imprisoned and killed. With the part being destroyed before the Polish proletariat even has a chance of carrying out the revolution, which is why I ask if revolution is actually possible in Poland. So Maybe I will start it from this accusation that the socialist government was because Soviet soldiers was there. Yes, it's true. Polish Communist Party was weak. But one thing is important to understand, that the Polish Workers' Party after Second World War was the most popular party in the young generation of Poles. The young generation, the people, the young workers, young peasants, the Polish Workers' Party have programmed for them and said, listen us, we want to build a new Poland. And because of this, they have this message for the young generation of workers. The anti-communist force, which was maybe strong, but this anti-communist force was strong in the oldest people, and it is the youngest generation which is the most important, because this young generation is the strongest one, the most radical. It can be the revolutionary or counter-revolutionary movement, successful counter-revolutionary movement, without young people. We don't care, and the Polish Workers' Party in the time of the socialist revolution in Poland in 1940s don't care about what the old women in the countryside thinking about communism, because of course we have all this generation that women, also men, but in Poland where the alphabetization of the literacy of the population was very, very weak, especially in the countryside, in peasants, and especially in women. That we could find a lot of reactionary theories. These old women going to the churches and listening the bishops, but we don't care about this, because this woman can say something, but it is not a force which could make a counter-revolution. Youngest generation of workers supported the socialist program. They were active to building new cities, rebuild the Warsaw, rebuild the other cities destroyed in the time of war, build a lot of houses, hospitals, schools, factories, and there was possible very, very quick career for somebody who is young. And 1 week ago died Stefan Michnik in the time of 92 years. He was a judge in the time of this cursed soldiers movement, and he was a judge in tribunal in time of 25 or 26 years old. So he was very young. Now it is impossible for somebody who is 25 years old to be a judge, because you in this time you already finish your studies, and you need to wait, and the judges in Poland now, this is the old guys. In socialist Poland, there was a problem with the people who work for the state, so they take somebody who is a member of the party, and if he is supported the socialism, he make a promotion very, very quickly. So yes, so I want to say that socialist transformation of Poland was because of was because of the Soviet army, but it was supported by the young generation of Polish workers. You have to remember, it is not possible to existence of Poland, socialist Poland, without this support, massive support that and many people joined this party. The Polish United Workers' Party have 3 million of members, so it was massive party. Okay, Polish left has low position. Yes, it's true, but it is good. It is good information for me, because in our fight today, the most important enemy is the Polish left, because the young worker always need to choose. He can join the Social Democratic Party or Communist Party. So if the Social Democratic Party is strong, they could use this strong position to corrupt these workers. Because Polish social democracy is weak, it's better for us and for our fight in the who will be the most powerful force in the Polish left. We won't win this battle, this war with the Polish social democracy. So for me it is not a problem that they are. We have to understand that Polish left, in many position politic of the Polish left are similar to position politic of the Polish right or liberals, in the question of NATO, in the question of imperialist propaganda, in the question of militarization of Poland, in the question about what they think about socialist Poland, and what they think about the capitalist counter-revolution. They are all together agree with this, and we are against this imperialist propaganda, and we are especially against the social democratic left, which are spread this social imperialist propaganda. And maybe in the finish I will say that today the Polish communist movement is weak, but Poland have strong tradition of the communist movement, and this tradition is not known by the Poles today, but also not known by the leftists from Western countries, and maybe it is not the subject to the discussion today, but that there are the things which I can be proud of the history of the socialism in Poland, especially the time of the revolution 1905. It was first time in the history of the working class that the massive strike in Poland and Russia could make a political change, a little change, but political change in the Russian Empire, and Tsar have to change, make concessions. Okay, sorry for my level of English, but the practice, maybe when I made 500 videos like this, I will start to speak better.